With me is Preeti Sharma Menon, one of the tallest leaders in not only Aam Aadmi Party but India overall. She is the face of those politicians who have come out of not being in politics. And with her we get a chance to assess really the the mentality behind creation of riots. As common men, as people who have had nothing to do with whatever rallies and vote bank politics, what goes behind creating riots? They seem so illogical. What good can come out of it? But as it is, politicians have their own reasons to conduct them or engineer them or support them. Preeti, it is very saddening that riots have remained a part of Indian politics. And what really is the reason that riots happen?
I think it may sound simplistic, but I feel that corruption is at the root cause of all the problems that we face in the country. Now, when a politician is corrupt and he does not intend to deliver to the people, he does not intend to deliver any work during his tenure as a politician. So when the politician gets elected as a representative of the people, whether it is at a rural level or whether it is at an urban level, whether it is at a national level, they are expected to deliver the promises what the government has made. They are expected to deliver the underlying goals of the constitution to the people. But in India, corruption has become so, it is worse than any pandemic that you can ever imagine, that not a single politician is concerned about delivering work. Now, if you don't deliver work, how will you get elected again? So, you want the people to vote for you, but you are not working, so they will not re-elect you. So then they rely in India on what is called vote bank politics. They cultivate a group of people to vote for them, either because they are of the same caste, community, religion, and they say that therefore if you elect me, the rights of our caste community will be protected, which is not bad. I mean, if somebody is representative of a particular kind of people, it's good that, okay, I represent these people, I stand for Adivasis or I stand for some neglected community. But that's not how it is used. It is used by inspiring in them a feeling of fear that, listen, I am a Thakur. If you vote me, I will protect the Thakurs. If you don't vote me, then other communities will take this role and they will grab your land and you will not be able to do the kind of corruption or the land grabbing that you're doing. So if you want to protect your crimes, you vote for me. Or I'm from this minority community. So if you vote for me, I will protect you, otherwise the majority will threaten you. So this feeling of fear that is created among people, it has to be kept alive. And how do you keep it alive? Because people forget easily. Public memory is very short-lived. I mean, we're talking about, riots in Mumbai in 3 decades ago. Nobody remembers it today. Those people have grown old. They're my age. They don't remember it anymore. So therefore, they provoke riots again and again, that this feeling of fear remains palpable in the minds of people. That if I don't have my people representing me, my community, my group of people, my area might get attacked. So this rule of fear is the cause of riots in India, and the reason why they do that is because they are inefficient, they are incompetent, they are corrupt, and they don't deliver, and they rely on this vote bank fear politics, and therefore they have to instigate riots time and again. And therefore I clearly state that all riots in this country are politically provoked, politically manipulated. They are not riots by the people. People don't get up one day and say, I want to fight with another community. It is entirely political.
It's one of those features which distinguishes India from so many other countries. So many other countries, as developed countries, we hardly see any riots in and around elections. They may have protests of a very violent nature, but so obviously it is saddening. One of the aspects as I study about riots is post-riot rehabilitation is also a very difficult matter. Political parties do not want to own up their mistakes or their guilt, or they don't want to be seen as helping them out because whatever, other groups may attack and say that, see, this is something that is lacking in your your constituency, and so on and so forth. So even then, what about rehabilitation? Do you think that when we look at Manipur, when we see at so many other riots stricken, even 1984, they say that it's not there is not complete rehabilitation even till now. So
you're talking about 1984. I say 1947 rehabilitation is still left like a gaping hole, especially in the city of Mumbai. You see the cantonment areas like Chembur camp, Sain Kolibada camp, camps in Ulhasnagar. They've kind of denigrated into slums now. They are not places where you have rehabilitated a community that has been a refugee. You have just left them to their fate in a very, very ghettoized kind of environment. So rehabilitation in India is pathetic, not because it cannot be done. It can be done. In 2020, there were riots in Delhi, immediately after the election in which the Aam Aadmi Party got voted. After which the Aam Aadmi Party did an incredible job of rehabilitation. We restored all the damages that were done to the community physically. So that is actually the easier part, the emoluments or the rebuilding of houses and things like that. But we also started a lot of engagements, and NGOs contributed as well, and the government supported those NGOs to try and rebuild the fabric. The same thing has happened in Mumbai after the 90s. I mean, if you remember, there were certain police officers who took a lot of effort in making Aman communities, mohalla-wise in Mumbai, especially in what we called sensitive areas like Dharavi and Bhiwandi. And after that, you haven't seen riots in these places again. So if there is political will, it is possible to rehabilitate a community. But there is no political will simply because they believe in the credo in India: keep them hungry, keep them foolish, and then you can use them as fodder. So if a person is extremely damaged by the riots, if you're doing riots in the first place because you want the people to feel vulnerable, then by rehabilitating them, that motive of yours is lost. So they will ensure that the people continue to feel vulnerable, they continue to feel damaged, they continue to feel threatened, and therefore they don't rehabilitate. So it's not that it is not possible to do it. It is that the political will is not interested. There
political will is on the reverse side.
Is on the reverse side. Their motivations are quite the contrary. Their motivations are to keep people in an element of fear. So if people are still living in cantonments since 1947, we've been independent for 75 years, we are celebrating some supposed Amrit Kal. But they are living in cantonments in Mumbai, which is the financial capital of India, and they must be living so in other areas as well. That means, just imagine, you want to just keep that Hindu-Muslim divide up even today. You want the feeling of fear to be in that community. But I'll tell you one thing. I come from a refugee family myself from the 1947 partition. My grandparents did not encourage hate and intolerance. Those who actually suffer riots are people who say and notice that evil is on any side. Wherever there is a mob, there is evil. So they realize that it is not a religion. Once the riot starts, it's no longer a religious or a community. It is just the evil among people in a mob that manifests. And that has been the experience of all refugee families from riots, that it is the evil in a mob that then takes on a different shape, which we saw in Manipur, that is so horrifying, that it is no longer about a community or about a cause or about an issue. It is just the mob group evil that takes hold of mankind. And why does that happen? Again, I come back to the same points. Lack of education. Our politicians, our governments have failed us. If our people were educated in the real sense, and not this clerical kind of education that we gave 10th pass, 12th pass, BA pass, and that's not education. In real terms, if I were educated, if I could differentiate right from wrong, then I would not be part of this mob dynamics. We have failed our people. We have not given them the right value systems which education is supposed to provide. We have not given them right tools in which they can scale up the ladder. They are still poor. They are still in a deprived state. So that's when they are vulnerable to this mob dynamics. If they were educated, if they had a job, if they had better interest, that I'm educated, I have a job, I have a career, I have something to think of, something to look forward to, then they would not
then you
fall
wouldn't
prey to this.
participate in a
So
in a
we are
riot.
part of a very large conspiracy which has been perpetrated by every political party that has historically been in India, sadly.
When we look at the making of a riot, there are many stakeholders. One is the central government, the other is the state government. Then there are then there is media, which has to fall in line, or they may not refuse to fall in line maybe. Then there are parties which are not in the power, which are outside of the, but they are still in the political orbit.
Yes.
Then there are NGOs or local leaders, and then there are businessmen as well. So all of these stakeholders, what would you, which do you have any message for any of the stakeholders? Do you think that there is at least some stakeholder who can be fixed? I mean, it's happening with the connivance of, with the collusion of all these stakeholders.
Correct.
So what can be the starting point to break this kind of
No, I would
ecosystem?
definitely have a lot of appeals which we must share very, very often. See, the state players are the perpetrators, I've been saying that. But in the state players, there is a huge bureaucratic and police machinery, which doesn't have to be part of the evil being perpetrated by a politician who just wants to get re-elected based on certain issues. Like, for example, the Manipur issue is not an issue about people actually. The issue about people has been instigated because one majority dominant community wants land rights of a minority community. So a minority community, in order to feel protected because they are the original inhabitants of that land, have been given certain privileges that your land will be kept sacred for you. It's like how you see in the United States, there are areas marked out for the original people who lived over there, the aboriginal people. So that way, the community had been given special rights since the time of independence and then repeatedly thereafter, so that those indigenous people
Have some
who have
space.
limited resources have some sense of protection, identity, abilities, resources. The majority community over there, which is the community in power, wants that land. It's greed. Greed is the motive. So when greed is the motive, at that time one would appeal to people who are not in the political system, who are non-state players, like the business communities, to rise above this. One can appeal to them. Actually, businesses get badly damaged during riots, and it takes a lot of time for businesses to recover. So I would appeal actually to the business community that you, as non-state players who have a large amount of influence, because you have a large amount of workers and customers and consumers, to constantly keep the messaging going that this kind of atmosphere is not good for the country's health. So I would appeal to business leaders to help and reach out and try and ensure that this kind of damage does not take place of the economy. I would appeal to the youth, and I would appeal to non-state players like NGOs to actually focus on instilling a value system in youth, because see, sadly our education has failed us. So now it's up to people like you, who are young, who are part of a community online and in different ways engaging with people from the theatre, people from the art world, who the youth gets connected to tell the youth that this is a sheer waste of time. It's too big a risk to take for a short gain. You can tell the youth, I'll give you 5,000 rupees today, you take a sword and run out in the open, but for that he's risking probably a career which is 5 lakh a year or 50 lakhs a year or whatever the case might be. So if that kind of messaging can go out to the youth, that the risk that they are taking to damage their career and their life and their family and their future can really work. Because India's youth today is very aspirational. Today we are no longer a backward country in that sense. We are not, I won't even say we are developing, we're nearly developed. Our people are developed for sure. Maybe our economy is not. I go to rural India, people are aspirational. They want things. With the access of the internet, with the access of mobile phones, people now see that there is a world out there which I can be a part of. Today you go to any village in South India especially, you go to a village in Andhra Pradesh, they'll have at least 10 people who are living in the United States and earning salaries, if you compare them in Indian terms, 1 crore a year. So when the youth see that there is hope, I can do something, I can go and work instead of a driver here, I can be a driver in the Gulf or abroad, or I can go to Mumbai and I can have a job as a cab driver. That youth has to be told.
This brings us to a very important correlation. You're talking about like basically aspiration, very good employment, not just basic employment. Because I think there is a strong correlation between the time when riots take place and between economic downturns. Because when we turn the clock back on, we do see a certain correlation that they have never been in the period of massive economic boom like 2004 or 2007 or
Correct.
9 to 11. Those are the periods we have never seen any large scale.
You're right, actually.
Yeah.
That's a good insight.
So maybe economy can be the binding factor.
I
but
definitely think so. I think that the business community, the young working community can become the factor that says, no, we don't want this. We want our jobs, we want our careers, we want our dreams to be fulfilled, and they have to be. This message has to be sent across to them in multiple languages through multiple fora. Not just school is just not doing it. Colleges are just not doing it.
And
so,
about education again, there is very interesting angle. There was a time when education had interesting phenomenon like IITs and all 70 years ago or 50 years ago, IIMs or something like that. But today they seem to be lacking as well. Their model has not been able to scale up the reforms which are needed in education. Today, when we look at education, the best institutions fail to be a role model for other institutions to replicate themselves. So where do we stand? Like an elite school today or an elite college today still has acquired a very elitist hue. They have become like clubs where, like, if you look at IIT, IIMs, they are clubs of, the big jobs should come to us and the big funding should come to us. Then we go to, let us say, the other schools of, all the political leaders should come through us, all the media folks should come through us. So even they have failed to be the fulcrum of inclusion, which in a way is also the underlying reason for, let's say, riots and deprivation.
Absolutely. I think you should look at education from a number of different facets. First is, we are very good at skill-based education in India, even today. So we can impart great skills to our people. IIT can produce amazing people. IIMs can produce amazing people who can do various functions, and therefore they get employed easily. Now, government premium institutions are very few. When I was a child and I was studying, there were 4 medical colleges in Mumbai. Today, when my daughter's completed her education, there are still only 4 medical colleges in India, in Mumbai. So I'm saying that the government premium institutions have not grown enough to ensure that everybody gets a career path through there. So private education has stepped in. Private education is purely skill-based. I mean, if the British were producing an army of clerks, private education is creating an army of computer engineers to get jobs abroad. They're producing an army of technicians. They're producing only skilled labor.
Robots.
That's what they're doing. So value system is not being imported by education, especially not the private education, and some of them are, like you said, very elitist, because they are all, if you see most of them, owned by politicians. Okay, so most education has now become the most lucrative business for politicians and for business persons. So they are also engaged only in creating a career path for you, but again it is for a select few. So the problem is that what we need to focus on is mass education. What is happening in the tribal ashram shalas across Maharashtra? What is being taught in the Anganwadis? What is being taught where nobody can reach but a schoolmaster manages to reach? That is the education, and that is sadly state-owned. So more and more of us should get involved in the state education, should keep an overview on it. In Delhi, we were able to transform it. Today in Mumbai government schools, the municipal schools, there are less than 250,000 children. In Delhi today, in Delhi government schools, the municipal schools we have just acquired, just Delhi government schools up their number to 18 lakh children. 18 lakh children who are now giving NET exams, who are giving IIT exams. So at a time when the Chief Minister's son goes into IIT, a vegetable vendor's son has an opportunity to go into IIT. So it is this mass education that has to be reformed. And that, I think, should be the agenda of everybody. If all parents, if all youth could realize that if we can get world-class free education, we would be an America or an England or a Germany. Today in all these countries, what is it that they provided first? They provided free education up to high school, and in some places like Germany, even university. So free world-class education, not just free education which is a BMC school which is neglected, where the toilets are broken and where nobody really wants to send their child. Even the poorest of poor people today don't want to send their child to a government school. They want to send it to a private school in their slum. But they feel that, okay, the child will have a better opportunity there than a government school. That has to change. And that is what voters must think of. That is what citizens must think of. That is what we must force our politicians to think of. That this mass education, once that changes...
Is the only way to have a long-term solution to...
Correct. Otherwise, any other...
things like riots, is that...
Any other thing is just very sporadic, too little, too less, we're such a large population. We're talking about the largest population in the world today, and therefore mass-scale education, which the government can provide, has to change.
During a riot, what are the things a person can expect? When a riot has been organized or strategically commissioned, whatever it is, the police springs into collusion. Other political leaders must also be under pressure to not to be within their limits or something.
I'm sure.
What are the kind of phone calls that take place when a ruling party decides that we want to do this?
No, it's a terrible situation. And I mean, I remember my experience of the 90s. My whole family was only in panic mode because where was my younger sister? Women are very vulnerable in riots because women have always been used as a tool to demonstrate power. That very, very crude instinct which a Genghis Khan probably employed, centuries ago, is still being used. So women are especially vulnerable during riots, and every family panics at the thought that if there is a disturbance in the country, if there is a disturbance in my city, in my village, in my town, where are my daughters? Where are the women folk? That's the first worry that we have. And therefore, I think that the security forces need to be really trained and sensitized on protecting women. In the Manipur horror, we have heard that the police was present when it took place. How could that have happened? I mean, somebody who is the security in charge of an area, who is responsible for the lives of the people, can see such a horrific crime being conducted. That crime is worse than death. That crime is worse than murder. I mean, that crime is worse than throwing an atomic bomb on people. You are going to the various core of anybody's value systems and destroying them in a single sweep. Okay, you're destroying the entire aspirations of millions of girls of India by doing that. So I think that it is a huge need. And even today, when we go to a police station in Mumbai, we feel that to register a crime against women is such a challenge. Our commissions for women are an absolute failure. We've seen how Delhi Commission of Women, Swati Malibal, has pointed out how the National Commission of Women had got this complaint over a month and a half ago. They had not acted on it, and they had not even tried to bring it out in the public that such a horrific crime has been committed. They were actually part of covering it up. They were trying to cover it up so that it does not get out, and therefore, the party in power which they support is protected. So our commissions of women are a failure. Our media is a failure, which is not horrified enough. I mean, there is not enough outrage. Editor or bureau chief of a leading news agencies says, while talking about this crime, that the truth has many facets. There are different versions of the truth. What is a version of truth when the woman has been paraded in this manner? There is no version of truth left. The people who did it are worse than criminals, and the police who stood by is worse than those people who did it. So I would think that the media and the security systems of this country, the police, the paramilitary forces have failed.
Is the police trained enough to understand?
Not at all.
Or is it okay? So it's their understanding is at fault rather than, let us say, them getting calls, them being forced to do all of these things in a scenario.
I'm sure that there is pressure. Okay, I mean, in your job there is pressure. Your boss tells you to do something, you don't want to do that thing, you do the right thing. You know, there's always pressure. But a police officer has so much power to protect people. If they could be trained to do that, I mean, the calls that we got during the Delhi riots, I mean, not me personally, but people who we knew over there, there were such panic calls that we're calling the police, we're calling the police numbers, we're calling the number of the inspector that we know in our police station, and they're not answering. They're not responding. So the poor response of the police during these because an individual can't go and help. I mean, even if you call an elected representative, he cannot come out there in his khadi kurta and say, Bharat Mata ki jai. You need a policeman with a baton or a gun to come there and say, everybody behave. And that police fails to respond during such crisis. They don't answer. They don't respond. And if a crime is committed, they do not file it. They do not register it. I mean, even today we are talking, I think 2022 National Crime Bureau statistics show us that in Delhi, every day, there are 2 rapes committed. Can you imagine? We're talking about the national capital. Every day, 2 women are raped, and these are registered cases, Tarun. The unregistered cases we don't know about. I mean, imagine the level of crime that is persistent in a city like that. Why? Because people know that the police is not going to punish the perpetrators. The police is going to become a political tool, and that is the sad part. If the police, because they think that they are with the central government and the state has a different political party in power, they feel that we should let law and order break down, then that's very dangerous for democracy.
What would be the lowest hanging fruit? Let us say there are many long-term reforms like education and all to deal with a situation where people should not be supporting anything like a riot. But what would be like the low-hanging fruit if a party or a leader decides that, okay, we are in charge now, and this is what we should do to reverse the trend of riots and all?
So see, if a party that comes into power, the first thing they can do is they can ensure that there is enough job opportunity for the people, because ultimately all this stems from joblessness. All this stems from a lack of opportunity. The reason you can make a person go out with a sword chanting a slogan is because he has nothing better to do. Any other problem, like you see in Punjab, we are dealing with historic drug addiction. What the Punjab Chief Minister is trying to do is he's trying to create obscene number of job opportunities. He's trying to upskill people so that they get employed, because an employed guy is not going to think about taking drugs. He has to report to work tomorrow, right? So if you have a job, if you have an opportunity to better your life and that of your family, then you will not be involved in any nefarious activities, whether it is personal like consuming drugs, or whether it is a larger public damage kind of thing that you can do by being part of a mob. So I think that the low-hanging fruit for any government to do is to work on the economy, to create job opportunities, and they are there. I mean, if you make a serious effort, we can change the trend of India becoming, just a market for international players, but instead of that becoming a kind of production center. Yeah. Today we are for Coca-Cola. I don't mean anything against the brand, but any international brand, we are a huge market. So they see us as a market opportunity.
Yeah, we are like
they should see us as a production opportunity. They should see us as a manufacturing opportunity. We've lost that edge to China, and we have to revive that. We have to create opportunities, whether it is in the service sector or the manufacturing sector, because agriculture is just not doing well. The people don't see hopes in that. So I think that any government in power, if they want a stable society, they have to create job opportunities. That is the biggest challenge that India has today, and that is it's like I feel it's a subject that's on fire.
People, and it can be done quite quickly. There can be quick reforms which can, because we have seen tremendous phases of economic
prosperity, growth. When there is a will in the political circle, then you see that there is economic prosperity.
Do you think that in future elections or that momentum will come back where politicians do not feel threatened by too much economic progress?
I think that for that, social media can play a very important role. social media can make it an imperative that that we want jobs, we want opportunities. If they create that culture, then politicians will be forced to toe to that culture. Right now they are politicians are feeding the lowest common denominator, and that is a feeling of fear कि मेरा सब कुछ चला जाएगा, मेरी community मुझे बचा लेगी, मेरा these people will protect me. If we could get politicians to understand that the biggest need of your voter is a job, and he doesn't care now about his community or protection or anything, and if we could create that
public
as a social
pressure,
momentum,
public pressure is the only
and
way.
awareness, what you're doing is tremendous. I think what people across India on social media, YouTubers, you have so much influence. I mean, there are YouTubers in India which have millions and millions of people following them. So people on social media, influencers, people part of the media, smaller media houses, regional media houses, can create this pressure that the most important need of the people today is a buoyant economy and not a slowing economy. That's what we want, and we don't want anything else. If we can create that kind of pressure, we will get that kind of response from the people who aspire for power.
So I think we discussed a very important part about riots, how they take place, and more importantly, how we can quickly reverse the trend in the coming months or few years. Preeti, you've been in a job yourself before you turned into politics. You're an accidental politician, so to say.
Yes.
You joined India against corruption, and one thing led to the other, so to say.
Absolutely.
So how do you look back to your years? Do you feel that, oh wow, I did something, I did a good thing, or do you think that, okay, should I have just made more money and retired, or holidayed in sent selfies from Sweden? What do you think?
I have to admit, there are moments when I say, what the hell am I doing here? Why am I not in a normal job and having a normal income and a steady life and more time for my family? But what the India Against Corruption movement did was, it woke our conscience. It made me realize that I have always been only focused on me, myself, my family, my children, my parents, which is right, which is the honorable thing to do. But there's a larger problem out there, and if we don't get up and solve it, nobody's going to solve it. If you leave a seat vacant, the next idiot is going to come and sit on it. So you have to sit on that seat, and that's what's happened in India. Politicians have created such a kind of perception that politics is very difficult and you can't join politics, and nobody, and now every person thinks that nahi politics mat jana, and no child wakes up in the morning and say कि माँ मैं डॉक्टर बनूंगा और दूसरा बोलता है माँ मैं पॉलिटिशियन बनूंगा. ऐसा होता नहीं है. Do you think politician is the worst? So, and that suits the politicians very well, that you all don't come in, my son, my bhanja, my daughter.
Fortunately, what I have seen during my travels in the pandemic, where you had to go out of the city, do other things, that even in smaller towns and mid-tier cities, people do not fear politicians the way they used, and lots of people from very strange backgrounds have actually joined
That's
politics.
The best change. I think that is the biggest difference that India Against Corruption movement made, where good people must come into politics.
Or at least for now we can say that anyone can enter.
Anyone can enter. If I can enter, anyone can enter. I'm an ordinary middle class homemaker, job, kind of worker from Mumbai, very, very ordinary, had nobody remotely contained to politics, and I'm in politics. So I think that's the change we need.
So another thing in political, as you enter politics and all, is even those who enter laterally into politics from being in jobs or being a very high profile, background, and then entering politics, they get the top jobs in political ladder.
That's true.
But your journey has been different in that sense. You're not like a corporate executive who are running a few companies and some stuff like that,
no.
And then landing up to be a part of a very core group of a national party. So how did it come about? Do you think that opportunities still exist in your party, that yes, we don't really care about what you have been, where you have been, but if we see something in you, we can utilize your talent in a very different scale?
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. That it's easy for a person who's been a top-notch bureaucrat or a film star or some big shot somewhere to launch themselves into any political party and capture a top job. In Aam Aadmi Party, it is different. I have seen that people who came from the television studios into the party, left in the television studios. They did not sustain themselves, the celebrities who joined us, because politics is hard work. And in Aam Aadmi Party, if you work hard, you're rewarded. You get a ticket, you get to contest elections, you can become a chief minister. So it is the hard work of a Bhagwant Mann and his love for his people that has made him a chief minister today. You know, and he was an ordinary man. He was just a person who was a comic. He was a comedian, a stand-up artist. And that person is today a chief minister. In Punjab, there is a MLA who was working in a mobile repair shop. His mother is still the janitor in the local school, and he's become an MLA. There is an ordinary social worker, a girl in Amritsar, who today has defeated two of the biggest politicians of Punjab, Majithia and Sidhu. In one single sweep, she defeated them to become an MLA. So Aam Aadmi Party shows that if you are just willing to work hard and you commit yourselves, the opportunity is there, the world is your platform, and I think that this is something that we're immensely proud of. Today, any person without any background can join our party. If you show sincerity, if you're willing to work hard, the party will give you every opportunity.
To wrap up a very endless conversation, just one last question in this itself is, like now the challenge is not so much that fresh faces can be a face of a political campaign or a party. The challenge is that they are of a certain quality that can prove to be a visionary aspect for the people. I mean, they should bring qualities which people do not normally have. Like a common man may not understand a few things, and this person should understand those things. So how do you do your filtering? Like when you choose to let's say elevate a person in the party, what kind of a mechanism goes into making sure that okay, this candidate or this person meets all the right tick boxes?
See, I have worked in human resources in my earlier career, and you can never get the math right. You may say, okay, this job, this is the qualification that you need, this is the background that you need, this is the experience that you need, and you may still pick up somebody who's a complete failure at it. And you may get somebody who is not at all of that background and they may be a maverick at it. So in politics too, we may make mistakes. It's not that we are always right. But I think what one must understand is, if the value system is right, then all skills can be learned. 12 years ago when I joined politics, I didn't even know what the NCRB is. Today I'm quoting the NCRB figures. Okay, I didn't know anything about the issues that were faced by farmers in Maharashtra, or by the Dalits of Maharashtra, or by the Adivasis. All these things can be learned. If you're sincere, you can learn. And in Aam Aadmi Party, we give everybody a lot of opportunity to understand, learn issues, interact with subject matter experts, and understand where we want to take our education model, where we want to take our health model. We learn these things. Our MLAs learned it. Satyendra Jain was an architect, and he created the revolutionary Mohalla Clinic. Manish Sisodia, besides being an activist earlier, was a television personality. And from there, he's moved on to become the best education minister the country has ever had. So I'm saying the skills can be learned. Don't worry about the skills. It is the integrity and the willingness to work hard, because politics makes you really work hard. Even the corrupt politicians work really hard. They have to be up at 6 a.m. and they have to be available till midnight, and they have to be available in the middle of the night if required, even to do their corrupt things. So politicians, the only thing that they have to do is, it's not a 9-to-5 job. It's a 24/7 job. It's a lot of hard work. If your values are right, you can really make it in the Aam Aadmi Party. That's for sure. You'll learn everything else.
Any last words you would have for people who are thinking about riots, how to deal with them? Anyone who is affected by riots, so what would be your message for them?
For people who are discussing or whatever, who are thinking about the situation in the country, I would suggest have more conversations, have more frank conversations, and be willing to hear what other people are saying. Don't have a closed mind about it. There is no one way one can talk about riots, that this is why it happened. There's no one reason. It's a multitude of factors, and what India is very capable of is, we're very tolerant people. We can allow a lot of influences. I mean, you were saying earlier that there are more riots in India than other countries, but I feel given our size and given our diversity, we are still doing very well. Basically, the Indian citizen, the Indian or average person is a good human being. He likes other people. He wants to be helpful. Aap rasta pucho, 10 people will come to help you. This is the way to go. In India, people are very helpful, you know, they want to go out and be kind to people. Our country is surviving not because, I mean, despite bad politicians, but because our people are good.
People power.
So good people should have good conversations, they should have more views, they should be open. For victims of riots, I'm sorry, but my heart just breaks. I feel that I'm in no place to be able to give you any comfort. Other than that there are many of us who are willing to do whatever it takes to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
So thanks a lot, Preeti. I hope that you remain in politics, or if go back to corporate job in a very lucrative manner, one of the two. What else? Any last words?
No, I think that it is important for good people to be in public life, whether you choose to do it through politics or through social work or through social media. People must engage, people must talk. We must have the difficult conversations in our living rooms, in our studios, and I think that these conversations will ensure that we have a healthier, vibrant democracy.
So thanks a lot. Thanks for sparing your time.
Thank you, Tarun, and wish you all the best.